Nintendo just aired a highly anticipated direct for the upcoming fighting game ARMS. Featuring a diverse cast of wacky characters with hyper-extendable arms, the game got its own exclusive direct leading up to E3 2017. Now, before we get into the actual content of the direct itself, I wanted to make a more general observation. I prefer having frequent game-centric directs like this ARMS direct, as opposed to gigantic jacks-of-all-trades directs. It makes me feel more like Nintendo is connected with the audience and their desires and concerns. Instead of us hearing absolutely nothing major from them for ages, then we get an atom bomb of news that we have to digest. We get a little bit at a time, doled out in a stream of manageable doses. And that, I think that helps keep fans engaged and excited rather than feeling like they're being left to dry. With that being said, I find the timing of this ARMS Direct very intriguing. This was aired in the lead up to E3, which indicates that Nintendo is probably gearing up for large announcements at the convention itself, rather than have a smaller presence as some media outlets have rumored. Furthermore, this indicates that ARMS is going to be present at E3, but certainly not a big factor, as they just gave us a whole exclusive direct on the game itself. It will be there, but Nintendo is wanting us to pay attention to something else that's going to be forthcoming at E3. Kaiju, what are your thoughts?
Well, initially, I didn't really have that many thoughts on ARMS. It was a game that was sort of pushed to the background of my mind when put vis-a-vis Breath of the Wild and, most importantly, Super Mario Odyssey. However, after watching this direct, my opinion of the game itself, just content-wise, I actually think that this should have been the launch title for the Switch.
Interesting.
Because I really feel, and I really have a negative impression of a 1-2 Switch. And I really think that ARMS actually feels like an innovative game, something that I could definitely see myself having a lot of fun with. And if Nintendo wants to maintain that aura, because obviously they're transitioning into a new generation of system that's really fundamentally not oriented around a fun little family Wii Sports type experience. This is something new. This is something oriented towards gamers. But if they still want to maintain at least some semblance of that aura of, hey, we're family friendly, this really feels like the game that a family would go towards, right? I really do feel like this is going to be a very fun game. It's going to be a very interesting game. And I really think it reflects a new desire emanating from Nintendo to experiment with new sections of intellectual property, right? Because for the longest time, we got nothing but homogeneous Super Mario, Legend of Zelda, an occasional Pikmin, an occasional Animal Crossing, smatterings of Star Fox, although those were infrequent, very rare Kid Icarus, and even rarer.
Lots of Kirby.
Lots of Kirby, correct. Yeah, lots of Kirby, and lots of Pokemon. And so these games were, and there's nothing wrong with that happening. It was just that it was, they weren't introducing anything new. Then came Splatoon, and Nintendo got the very savory taste of what a new IP could do, right? Splatoon.
Yeah, I mean, they're releasing a Splatoon 2. It was wildly popular. And
Splatoon 2 was wildly popular on a system that was not wildly popular. So
you mean the first Splatoon?
Yeah, the first Splatoon was released on the Wii U. The Wii U was not very popular. Splatoon was, in contrast, very popular.
Indeed.
And so I think Nintendo realizes, hey, we have something to gain here, because not only do we have a console that's extremely successful, at least right now in the first quarter and into the second quarter. Not only do we have a console that's extremely successful, we can also capitalize on bringing in a new IP like Splatoon that would have the same aura and uniqueness and newness that Splatoon had, but on a system that's much more popular and much more widespread. And I think that they'll be very successful in their efforts.
Yeah, definitely. When ARMS was originally announced, I wasn't opposed to it. In fact, I thought it was a cool concept. But to me, I mean, I think they've kind of held it under wraps for a long time, a lot of the details. And I mean, there's good reason for that. But I felt the announcement of it was a little bit bungled because it just looked like, oh, ho hum, another party game, another casual game, just to sell some more Switches, or just to get some more an extra buck here, Like it didn't really seem like they were putting that much effort into it, and there wasn't that many characters. Like a lot of the comments I saw were like, this seriously can't be the roster, Like please tell me there's more characters. And I mean, there's still only, I think there's 10 characters, but we'll get into more of the customization aspect of the game and really why I don't think that's a problem in a little bit here. But the point is that I'm trying to make is that ARMS at first was, as you said, a very back burner type of game. It was just like, okay, it's there, it exists, but it didn't really seem like to me it was going to be a big splash. Well, now, especially with this new ARMS Direct, those expectations have been blown out of the water. I mean, everybody thought it was going to be a casual game, and now when you look at it and you see the complexities underneath the seemingly simple veneer, just how many different play styles you can choose, all the different combos you can rack up, all the customer characterizations, etc. It can be viewed as a legitimate fighting game, Like, I mean, I'm not on the same level as like Street Fighter or something, but like it's kind of gaining more and more legitimacy based on what the Direct just showed us.
Yeah, no doubt. And one of the thing, this is just an example of perhaps poor marketing on Nintendo's part. But when I first saw the trailer for ARMS, and granted I didn't pay much attention to it because there was so much else to pay attention to, what I thought it was literally a port of the boxing game from Wii Sports with new skins. That's literally all I thought it was. I've played the boxing game on the Wii before. You hold the nunchuck in one hand and the Wii remote in the other hand, and you move your arms back and forth, and it simulates a boxing game. Nothing about it is realistic. But when I first saw ARMS, that's literally what I thought it was. I thought, okay, Nintendo liked the Wii Sports idea of, having a real life, really fun boxing game, and so they're going to take that concept, give it a new skin, and then market it as a whole nother game. And so to me, it was like, okay, that might be a little bit cool, but not something I'm going to buy. Then the Direct comes in, and the Direct showed me that my impression was completely wrong. Now, you could blame me for that, just not paying attention to it, but honestly, I'm one consumer. Nintendo as a company needs to do a better job of making sure that sort of impression doesn't reach my mind, right, or any consumer's mind.
Yeah,
because that's
and
such
honestly,
a
I don't
bad
blame
impression.
You. Honestly, I don't blame you because that was kind of my impression, and that was what I thought a lot of the community thought as well. Is just, oh, it's just another little, lame game. It's not going to be a big deal. Like, that's how they marketed it at first, and it didn't really generate much buzz or excitement. And then, wham, we get this whole new Direct, and it just shows how wrong we were. Now, on that note, what I think specifically excites me about this game is, first of all, there's 10 characters. At the very end of the Direct that mentions, because back in some previous episodes that we have discussed this idea of Nintendo locking stuff behind a paywall, like with the Fire Emblem episode, or, you expressed a concern of Nintendo switching to a different philosophy, kind of like other gaming companies. Well, ARMS is going to be releasing new levels, new characters, new stages, etc., completely free. I think that's really interesting, and I think that's a really good route, because the thing is that they're already going to have you pay for an online service for the Switch games, and so keeping this excitement going from a consumer standpoint and from a business company standpoint, what does it cost Nintendo to put, another character, another stage up on the game, right? Not so much in comparison to the amount of copies and the amount of excitement and enthusiasm for the game they're going to generate with that news, right? So I think that was a really smart move to make that new character, new stage thing for free. Secondly, I think the customization options for the characters, you can play. You have a core gameplay style with a certain character, but then you have those three. Like each one has three different. Each character has three different customization options, which can totally change up what you're doing, right? And so you can just mix and match and test and see what you feel works for you. And you can create some really cool things so your opponents won't really know what to expect, So that I think is a really cool aspect as well, that I think will keep it fresh and will keep the formula something engaging to come back to, because Splatoon has, and I think the similarities between this game and Splatoon are many. They're a new IP. They have a very whimsical, almost cartoony, kind of out there premise. Like, I mean, the premise of ARMS is that, all of a sudden, someday, some random humans just woke up with these hyper extendable arms, and nobody knows how it happened. Like that's the story of ARMS. That's it. Splatoon has a really, it seems really simple. It's actually kind of interesting. It's basically like a post-apocalyptic society where I think it was like climate change or global warming, just totally changed the planet. And you have these squid kids, like both very highly improbable and laughable premises, but it makes for a really rich lore and a rich art style and art direction. And so I think Nintendo might have tapped into another winner here with ARMS, just like they did with Splatoon.
There's no doubt about that, yeah. And as you mentioned, the diverse cast of characters really enhances the fun of the game, I think. And I think they're also ameliorating one of the problems that I think a game that I think is going to be forgotten in history in a few years. It's Pokken Tournament. I think Pokken Tournament and this game are also share some similarities. And very unfortunately, I thought that game was going to be extremely popular, but it's actually kind of gone down the tank recently. And I think that it'll go down the route of Pokemon Coliseum or some other game, in that it's not going to be remembered for in a few years' time, right? The problem that game had was that it didn't have enough playable characters, in my mind. And the
I think there's a few problems with Pokken, but yeah.
There's many problems with Pokken, but actually it's a very good game. But the main thing that stuck out to me was the characters that they had were just numerically too few. But second, the characters that they gave us were just horrible. And I don't want to get off on a tangent on that.
Yeah, they were so random.
The inclusion of Brixen, why? Why do we get Brixen? And then why do we get both Pikachu and Libre Pikachu? I mean, give me a break, Nintendo. There's so many good mods that you could have worked with. There's so many good ideas there. I mean, you've got a Dex. At the time, Gen 7 wasn't released, so you had 721 Pokemon to choose from, and you choose to make 2 different Pikachu iterations? Give me a break.
Yeah.
But regardless, I want to get off the topic of Pokken.
Exactly.
ARMS does a very good job, just from this direct, it does a very good job of giving us a diverse cast of characters, and within each individual character, there is a whole new layer of diversity, right? So I think with each characters, there'd be it'd be 6 different possible options for each individual characters. You take one character and you have 3 different possible options, assuming having one option on the left hand and the right hand doesn't count. That's a exchangeable permutation. So you have 6 different options, right? And so just you take each character, and how many characters did they announce? 10?
They have 10, yeah.
Yeah. So then that totally is 60 different options right there, right? And I know that you can, and I know that there's other options as well. So when you add that in there, and they had the counter there, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of different options, right? And I really think that is something that Pokken needed, that ARMS will hopefully have, and honestly, I think it's something that Splatoon needed as well. But that's a whole different topic. I really think that their diversity is, and their diversity in characters, and also their diversity in players and player options is very heartwarming and
definitely. Yeah, the characters are interesting. They're like I said earlier, they're wacky, they're cartoony. It's just fun, the whole game, it just, I mean, this sounds so cliche and awkward, but like it just reeks fun, like it looks like a game that I can just pick up, enjoy with friends, and that's what the Switch is going for. And I think another issue with Pokken is that I think it tried too hard to make itself an esport. I think it tried too hard to market itself to a super hardcore gaming audience, like the people who are super into like Street Fighter or Marvel versus Capcom or Injustice 2. I think Pokken tried too hard to make itself like one of those super hardcore technical fighting games. And so that's, I think, part of the reason why it didn't really get off the ground. ARMS, on the other hand, I think it kind of has a mix of the two. I mean, I highly doubt ARMS is going to become an official esport on the level of Injustice or Marvel or even the Smash Bros games. Like I highly doubt it's going to become an esport, but I mean, who knows? Like, again, all of the customization and all of the intricacy beneath the seemingly simple facade, the simple presentation, who knows? It could attract some, upper core talent.
Yeah, I could see that.
We'll have to see about that.
And I would disagree with you on the Pokken front, because Pokken has actually got off the ground with the esport. I have seen many people do Pokken tournaments and whatnot. It's there. Its presence is there. It's just not a very loud presence.
There.
Yeah.
It's there, but I mean, it's like saying, oh, the Super Smash Brothers brawl scene in esports is still there, But I mean, is it huge? Is it really successful? Does it draw a lot of talent? Is it something new and engaging? No. If they kept banning Meta Knight, I think Brawl could have been successful. But because they unbanned Meta Knight, I think that was one of the main reasons why that everybody just shifted from Brawl to Smash 4 or Melee, because to be quite frank, Brawl sucked so much on a competitive level.
Indeed. Yeah, and it's promptly
it's a great party game. It's a great party game. Don't get me wrong, but tripping is cancer, and Meta Knight is also cancer. So, enough said on that can of worms. So anyway, before we end off, I just wanted to ask, what were your favorite characters from the trailer, and who do you think you might main in that game?
Why don't you go first on that?
All right. Well, I usually, just from watching the different characters and seeing how they play, the two that stood out to me were actually the, I forget his name, but he's like the cover boy, like the, kind of like Tracer from Overwatch. Is like the cover girl of Overwatch, like the vanilla guy with that
the spring hair and whatnot.
Yeah, the spring hair. Yeah, I think he actually, there's sometimes in some games that there are characters which they're the cover, jack of all trades. They're good. They're pretty well rounded.
The Mario of the series.
Yeah, the Mario of the series. He was one of the characters that I could actually see myself really getting into, because the one character that I think everybody is kind of poo-pooing is the Mummy. Like, the Mummy just seems way too slow, and like the idea of regenerating your health is cool, but it's just, he seems way too slow and easily comboed, But the cover guy seems really versatile, really useful, and he kind of stood out to me. But the other one that also stood out to me was the DNA fighter. Like, again, I'm not really good at the names. I'm going to have to get better at... Yeah, Helix. The different character names. But Helix seems really janky. Like, I don't know. Who would be a good comparison in, like, one of the Smash games? I'm kind of drawing a blank there right now. But he seems like a really janky kind of fighter.
Almost like a Wario of sorts.
Yeah, kind of like Wario. I can
albeit elongated and much less fat.
Indeed. Yeah, no, but the thing what I liked about him was that you can kind of set up ruses, like you can shield and then you can just, drop your punch over your shield, like those kind of trickery and rusing, that seems really kind of like an interesting play style that I might want to try out. Really, almost all of the characters, I think, could be easily mainable or playable. I think they all have their strengths and weaknesses. although I think the Mummy is the least, is probably going to be bottom tier. I think the Mummy is best comparable to King Dedede or Ganondorf in Smash. You know, super bulky, super powerful if he hits, but he's not going to hit often, and he's just going to get smacked around like silly all over the punching ring, you know? Indeed. So those are the two characters that stood out to me, but I think all of them, really, except for the Mummy, I could see myself probably doing well with.
Yeah. To me, the ones that stood out the most, well, obviously I agree, Helix to me was the unquestionably the best one in my mind. And all the other ones seem to me to be a bit, you know, interesting, but not nearly as interesting as Helix. Yeah, Helix was where it's at. When I saw Helix, I knew he was going to be my main. But there was actually 3 others that I liked as well, that I liked a lot. The first one was the dog and the police officer dude.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember him.
It was Bite and Bark.
Yeah.
They seem like they would be really, really fun to play as. Not to mention their design, and I considered both their design and their playability. Helix seems like he has both. Bite and Bark has both as well. I really like the concept of having like 2 different characters.
I can see both of them being top tier.
Yeah, comparable to I think Rosalina and Luma in a sense. They're very versatile.
Ice Climbers, Rosalina, and Luma. Yeah.
Although Ice Climbers were not good, but that's a different story.
Except for wobbling.
Right. But Rosalina and Luma are very, very good. And I can see Bite and Bark being a very comboable duo. The third one that I really liked, and this was mostly just because of the concept, not necessarily because of the playability, was Mechanica, who was the girl who didn't have extendable arms, but she was using
who's totally not Diva from Overwatch.
Indeed.
No, seriously, look at Mechanica, look at Diva. Tell me that Mechanica is not a ripoff. I digress.
I would not grant you that in 1,000 years, but I digress.
I'm trolling you, but yeah.
I've played Overwatch. The comparisons are tenuous at best.
I know. I'm just trolling.
Yeah, Mechanica, she really seems like, I just like the concept of her, you know, like this underdog who doesn't have the capability that everyone else has, but is using some feat of technology to be actually competitive. I really like that concept idea. It seems very unique, and it seems like someone who I will definitely be pocketing, if not maining. The fourth and final one is one that I am still on the edge about. I'm not sure if I like this one, but I digress. And that's Kid Cobra. Excuse me, I was going G.I. Joe for a minute. King Cobra. No. Kid Cobra. Kid Cobra seems like he has a really good play style. His design is okay, and I like the snake idea, but I really do think like he looks like someone that I would have fun playing as. But ultimately, it really just goes back to Helix.
Indeed.
Helix seems like he would be the most fun, and I also think he's one of the best designed.